quick second here, and I'm going to go to my Facebook page, and I'm going to start sharing this stuff. I'm going to share it to Dogs Chat and Triple R and my personal page. And while I do that, why don't you tell everybody what you've been up to, man?
Okay, well, thanks for having me on and being a repeat guest. That's quite an honor, so I appreciate it. I've been busy. Just I'm married. I have an amazing little daughter and my dogs and stuff. So life's busy just because of that. And business is good. I'm a dog trainer. I'm based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And so I continue to train dogs and do things on the side. I do seminars and have some other businesses. Recently wrote my first book. I'm already about halfway done on my second book. So I'm really getting into writing. And so yeah, life is busy. But one of the things I'm starting to realize more and more as the days and months and years go by is life happens really quickly, but you can get a lot of things done if you have a timeline, So I really focus on this concept called Parkinson's Law. And essentially what Parkinson's Law says is if you give yourself a month to achieve something, you'll get it done just before that month is up. And so I set pretty aggressive goals for myself, so that because I know that I will accomplish them. If you really, really, really want to go on vacation in 2 weeks from now, and you still have to make some money and find a place that's going to board your dogs and get all your ducks in a row and get your passport. If you want it bad enough, you're going to figure it out, and it'll probably just be in the nick of time. So I've just been spending a lot of time really focusing in on that, making sure that I'm just getting a lot of stuff done, because I give myself a short timeline, and it seems to really be super beneficial to helping me achieve my goals. I just give them a short timeline and they get done.
Awesome, dude. And just so you know, we got a bunch of people joining in. Meredith says hello. Raquel says hello, hello. Ted is awesome. So good to have him here live. I agree 100%.
Thank you, Sam.
Rebecca says, hey, guys. Cameron Thompson says, hey, friends. Hey, Cameron. And Marilyn, that's who was on the back end. Hey, Marilyn. Yeah, it was Ted shared the link that he was to the production studio, and we erased it. But that's we wanted to share it out. So if you guys are watching this, go ahead and hit that share button. Let's get this spread far and wide. Ted and I are going to be talking about the 5 most important things we have learned as dog trainers, and it might surprise you. I know a lot of dog professionals tune into this, so I'm sure that a lot of you can relate. And feel free to go ahead and Justin Crawford just joined us. Hey, Justin.
Hey, buddy. One of my good friends from Texas.
Yes, sir. Good dude. Yeah, good to have you here. And yeah, feel free to comment on my Bow Wow Bill page, and we will get them here if you have any questions for Ted or I. And then also I want to talk about Ted's new book, Thriving Dog Trainers. And it's interesting that what was the principle or the law that you were referring to?
Parkinson's Law is what it's called.
And it basically says that the time allotted for a task, the task will eventually swell to meet the allotted time. Is that? Am I thinking of the same law?
That's exactly it. If you look at something like college, if you're given a certain amount of time to have a paper in, about 90-ish% of people will have that paper in and will, leave a bunch of time to do nothing, and then at the end they will accomplish it. So the whole idea is basically well, I might as well just eliminate that front end time where I'm not doing anything and just give myself the timeline that I know I can actually utilize to get something done. So that's just one of the ways that I get a lot of things done and achieve a lot of goals, is I just give myself really aggressive timelines because I know that I can do it. We just accomplish the things that we want to accomplish in the timelines allotted, and I keep myself accountable, and I tell my friends and family, I'm going to have this done by this date. My second book is going to be done by July. And so it's like, hey, it's just, we all have ample time. It's just how we use it.
Yeah, man. I mean, and accountability buddies are huge. And so July, and I have a goal of writing a book as well. And, you know, it's so great when our friends achieve some of our goals, because we see that it's much more achievable than we think. And if our peers are doing the same, and you know, I think that I'm going to ask you to be my accountability buddy when I write my book. And you know, this is interesting stuff that you talk about, this timeline, kind of cutting out the beginning half. And I wondered, do you know about the 5-second rule? Sherry Lucas was on earlier.
Yeah, Mel Robbins.
Yeah, can you talk on that a little bit? I think that this might tie in with that. I'm not surprised you know it.
But I do follow her on YouTube. She posts a lot of pretty great videos. She's very inspirational, especially for women. That's kind of her niche, where she's really talking to women predominantly. And essentially, her 5-second rule is the most simple thing on the planet. It basically says, when you're putting something off, audibly count backwards from 5, at which point you do what you're supposed to do. So if you're being lackadaisical about getting out of bed, you just count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you get out of bed. And apparently there's something that's happening behind the countdown, where it's actually just counting down and doing that, you know, actually doing it is supposed to help you. I've actually used it. I think that it is beneficial. But that's basically the whole ethos of the 5-second rule.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you know about it. I mean, just it says that you're kind of cutting out the slack here, you know, and just putting yourself on a nice tight timeline, and so far it's working out well. I mean, you've already achieved this, and you've also have the DVD. He's Not Friendly, the same thing.
Yeah, I did a DVD that a lot of people don't know about for e-collar technologies, and that I did in a really aggressive time frame, and it turned out even better than expected. And you know, again, this is what we need it to be done with, and give yourself a timeline. And you know, once you're booking videographers and paying hundreds of dollars an hour, it makes it that much easier to stick to your timelines.
Yeah, it costs money, man. And that, I mean, we'll talk about this, but that goes into valuing yourself, and you know, it takes money sometimes to really put these projects together, and there's no guarantee that it's going to be a success. We make you know, these endeavors, we take on these endeavors because it's a passion, and you feel like the information is valuable that we have. And you basically made your first book geared towards dog professionals. Is it just why is that? Why didn't you make it towards the general public?
So the next book is, I'm not really releasing to the general public on what it's going to be, the topic, just yet, but the next book is going to be more mass market, more to help a lot of dog owners out there. So it's going to be training based. This one is a more business-based book. And the reasoning behind it was because I started writing this maybe about 6 months ago, after being prompted by my business mentor. And then I just got kind of carried away with things. And then I started rekindling that flame again. And I just told myself, listen, I've got about a quarter of the book already written. I could literally bang the rest of this book out in another month, no problem. So I essentially wrote the book in a month's time. But that was the major reason why. I already had some of it written down, and I was kind of, urged by my mentor, who's a really smart guy. And so that was basically it. I just thought, well, this is something I probably know. This is about this is essentially the topic I know most about in the world. I'm not saying that I know more than other people. I'm just saying the most that I know in my mind. And so it's something that I'm really passionate about. I love the dog training industry. It has its quirks, it has its foibles, but I know so much about it, and I love it. And so I figured, well, heck, I got to at least put this down on paper. And so that was really the reason why I figured it would kind of write itself, because I feel like I know a lot about the topic. And so again, that's why it seemed pretty easy to write for me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, you go through quite a bit in this book, from encouraging people to take up licensing, to picking the right business models, and you even give samples of business models, and then we talk about finding the clients, and we're going to talk about that as well as the important things that we've learned in this industry. And I think that it's important that just like if you have a dog trainer that you're going to hire, that you want to meet their dogs, and you want to see that they know what they're talking about. And even client testimonials are very valuable, especially from somebody that has used your service and has seen results that are akin to what this other client is looking for. And I think that just for hiring a dog trainer, but when you have built a successful dog business, I think that is also something that other dog trainers strive for. And I commend you for just sharing what you have observed during your trial and process, and so others may borrow your scars, so to speak, where they might not make the same mistakes that you have made, and maybe take their business a little bit further because of the advice that they've received from you.
I've also been really lucky. Like in the book, I talk about Duke Ferguson, who for many years was a mentor, and a very close friend, fabulous dog trainer, and great guy. Among others, I've had lots of great mentors that have helped me along the way, but I definitely am your stereotypical screw up and learn from it type of a person, like a lot of people are, and I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I just do my ultimate best to not make them anymore, because there's no point making the same mistakes over and over and over. So might as well live.
Yeah, I mean, if they say that if you don't learn from, well, if you learn from the mistake, it's not a mistake. But if you keep making them over and over again, then that's exactly what it is.
Exactly. So our topic today is going to be, I can't remember exactly how we worded it, but the 5 most important things we have learned as dog trainers, right, Bill?
Verbatim, dude. You got it. Bingo.
Perfect. Do you want to start us out?
Yeah, and then we also, for everybody that, we're going to have Duke on the 16th coming up here at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. So put that in your calendars. We'll be announcing that. And, first thing that I have learned is be yourself first. There's something that is driving you intuitively, and there's an intrinsic desire that you have to work with animals, and bring that authenticity, that passion that drives you. Bring that with you. Don't leave that behind. Let your true authenticity shine through, and you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but you're going to you know, some people definitely correspond to the beat of your drum, so to speak. And so that's my first thing that I've learned is just to be myself, you know. What about you, dude?
Interestingly enough, that was my number 3, so I might as well tag onto that a little bit. I completely agree with you. I have a Facebook friend who makes over $100,000 a year making videos online teaching people how to make sourdough bread. Okay, there you go. So you can make a good income doing what you love to do and spreading your knowledge throughout the world and providing people with value. Just to piggyback off of your idea, though, I'll take it just a little bit differently. Being who you are, either on your videos or your blog that you might have, or in your Facebook posts, or how you are when you're with clients or potential clients, all these different things is so massively important. I routinely get people that come in that are just amazing people, the kinds of people that I would want to, you know, light a nice fire in the backyard and have s'mores after our lesson, because these are the kinds of people that I attract, because they get an understanding of who I am through the videos that I do and just how I put myself out there in the world. I'm just honest about who I am. I'm unapologetic about that type of thing. I try to be funny and try to let people know kind of who I am and let people into my life to some degree. And I think that that really is important in attracting the right type of clientele, because, you know, it's a double-edged sword. You will get people that don't want to work with you. But here's the good news about that fact. Those people are not the kind of people you want to work with anyways, right? Just not. And in the book, I talk about one of my friends who's a trainer, who she's kind of like alternative. She's got a bunch of tattoos and such. And that's what she sells to the world. I have tattoos, I'm alternative, I'm a little bit out there, but that's what she attracts. Like, most of her clients have tattoos and, you know, they smoke a lot of marijuana, and that's just her clientele. But she attracts that because of what she puts out to the world. Whereas if she tried to stifle that, always wearing long sleeves and always trying to be prim and proper, she would get a lot more clientele that would be a lot more prim and proper, and she wouldn't be as happy with the clients that showed up. In the book, I also talk about how I have a friend who's actually not too far from this other person we just chatted about, who's very devoted to her family, kids, her dogs, her husband, and she puts all over her website, all over her Facebook, everything. She talks about being a family dog trainer. She wants to include the kids in the training, etc. And she attracts a massive amount of young families because they go on her website and they see, oh, she actually wants to work with her family. That's something that she specializes in. And so it attracts that to her. So I would always say, just be who you are. And you know, some of the people commenting in the section here can vouch for the fact that that's how I met a lot of these people, is just putting myself out there on dog training forums, and people would see me like just out walking my dogs and doing my thing, and they would get to know me, and then they would meet me at a conference or at a seminar or whatever, and they would come up to me and they would say, "You're exactly like you are in your videos." And so, like, but some people were repulsed by it, and I'm perfectly fine with that, because I don't want them coming up to me anyways. I want to hang out with cool people all day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just Mike, sometimes it's as silly I get during their dog or with their dogs during the training session, and that's just me being me. Awesome, dude. Yeah, I mean, I love these dogs. I mean, I look at them, I'm just like, oh, I'm just thankful that I do what I do. And every single day, I just wake up super happy that I get to work with animals. I get to work with dogs. And, you know, I love my life. And so, I mean, that is, with that authenticity, it comes, you know, sometimes you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But, you know, and one thing I learned is that you could fire your clients too. You know, that was very important. A thing that I learned when I had a mentor, business coach. You know, some people that maybe were taking advantage of me, or whatever the reason may be. There's plenty of them.
That being a problem for you, Bill, because you're such a nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, and it's taken sometimes. You know, and you know, we're naturally. If I love people, dude, I really love people. I love to get to know people. Like, I used to be a bartender, and that's what I miss about it, is that I could really, I mean, just really get to know people. And so we're all unique, and we're all individual with the lifestyles that we have and what makes us up. And it's just so cool. It would just blow me away. And same thing I do with my clients. And some of my clients I absolutely love. I have wonderful relationships with them for over a decade. And I'm just very thankful. I mean, I attribute it just to being myself and having my tattoos and my big old beard and just doing my thing. You know, it's something that I think my clients, I hope they appreciate. And I appreciate them as well. I appreciate the uniqueness that is them. And one of my mentors told me that if you ever wanted to be impressive to somebody, then you be impressed by them. And so I find something always to be impressed from my clients, from most people that I meet once I start to get to know them, and you know, it's super cool. So that's about me. So you said that was your number three. What was your number one?
My number one is something that I tell every trainer that I mentor, or anybody that comes to a shadow or seminar. The first thing that I teach them is you have to assume that every dog you work with will try to bite you. Now, the reasoning behind this is, for those that don't know, I mainly work with reactive and aggressive dogs. That's my specialty, and I love doing that. And so obviously it's really critical for me to stay safe, because I'm working with dogs that are trying to bite me essentially every day. However, even if you're not, even if you're working with puppies, even if you're working with basic obedience, even if you're doing general obedience classes, that type of stuff, it is important, because the thing is, you are going to work with dozens, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of dogs. And
I was looking all over for it. That's what I was doing. So hundreds of thousands of dogs. Sorry, if you're working a class, don't mean to interrupt.
So yeah, if you're going to work with potentially thousands of dogs in your career, you're going to run up against somebody's dog where they tell you, oh, he's great with people, or oh, he's amazing with other dogs, or whatever, and they're going to withhold information from you, or something is going to happen. And basically, the way that I learned this was very simple. About 6 years ago, I had this German Shepherd come in, and he seemed like a nice enough dog. They said, you know, we want to off-leash train him, and he has some behavior problems, but they said he was great with people and pretty good with other dogs. So I said, okay, great. So as a balance trainer, we are doing e-collar training with him for his recall work. And I went to go put the e-collar on him, and sure enough, he came up the leash and tried to bite me in the face. And so I kind of went back like this. Luckily, not for skill, but just, you know, luck of the draw, I was able to get out of there quick enough without getting bitten. When I was out of biting range of the dog, I looked at the owners and I said, like you just told me 5 minutes ago he was great with people. Like, where does this come from? And she looks at me and she says, oh, but he's terrible at the vet. He must have thought you were some sort of a veterinarian or something. And I remember in that moment, like, the lesson ends and everything's fine. And I remember just like sitting down and just going, I cannot assume that when somebody tells me the dog is fine, that the dog is fine, because that will get me bitten, right? And so that's one of the first things that I teach trainers, is that you have to assume, because 99.9% of the time, the dog will not try to bite you. But it's that 0.1% of the time, and you will be ready. And so now when I get a goofy, you know, enthusiastic dog come in that's like, oh man, this dog is just like so much fun, and he's, you know, he's clearly not aggressive, I still, if I go to grab the dog's leash or if I go to put a collar on the dog or something like that, I prepare myself just in case. And it's definitely gotten me out of a couple, you know, tricky situations just because I assume it. And if you assume it, then you're ready for it when it happens. And if it doesn't happen, great. You're still prepared and everything's fine. And the client doesn't know anyways. Like, you're just doing this subconsciously.
Error. Side off. I'm going to trade my. I'm going to put it. See if I can get this echo down. All right. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, let me put this. I'm going to switch my settings here really quick. But yeah, err on the side of caution, folks. I had a Bouvier that I worked too quickly with, and that was my problem. I mean, because of what I was told. And I thought that this dog was just a solid dude. And I went, and same thing, man. I mean, just placing your hand around that neck and moving towards that dog is going to show, you know, some to a predator. It just shows an advancement, and it could be a challenge. And dogs live right in a world of split seconds, and you know, you get over that threshold, and they'll nail you, man. They'll let you know to back up. But this guy nailed me really. I mean, I got a pretty good scar on my thumb here. It opened up my thumb, and it wasn't fun. I mean, the antibiotics that I had to be on, and it was a good reminder that I worked too fast with this dog, and it was my fault. I wasn't mad at the dog. I should have known exactly what you're saying, you know. And also, what people don't realize, or what the general public a lot of times doesn't recognize posturing. They don't recognize when a dog is, you know, being on the reactive side, and that's the other. You know, they'll make excuses for the behavior, and so what they think is cute and funny could be on the borderline of possibly being an aggressive situation.
Yeah, and now, as a rule, I just have the clients put the collar on the dog first, and then if I'm going to work with the dog, then they just hand me the leash. And if I have the dog on a leash, then at least I can control the dog if I push the dog over a threshold or do something incorrect. So it's just a lot safer that way. And so, again, these are things that we just learn kind of over time.
Yeah. Well, mine is, I mean, that's kind of like number 2 for me. Be humble. Be humble with the dogs you're working with, and be humble with the mentors and the trainers that you seek, and you know, open yourself without expectations and observe and learn the nuances, everything that you can about the technique that you're learning. That might fall into that. Well, and I also have number 3 for me was work with the dog at the end of your leash. Don't get caught up with a particular breed or anything like that. So that could tie into it as well, that you're working in the moment with that particular animal. And you know, utilize that moment, be in that moment with that animal, utilize any training gifts that might pop up. Yeah, work with the dog at the end of the leash.
You got to be in the moment, you know, like every dog is different. And I think one thing I've learned in the past too, and Marilyn just posted something about, you know, similar to that, you know, not trusting the owners to keep control of their dog during the interaction. I would go just one little step further than that in saying not trusting the owners to have an idea of what their dog is actually doing or communicating, because, and I'm sure that you would probably agree with this, Bill, I see so many dogs that come in and the client is just convinced the dog is the most dominant dog in the world or whatever. Yeah. Like the most insecure, fearful kind of a thing. And on the opposite side, sometimes people are like, oh, he's had a hard life. We got him from the pound, and you know, and all this kind of stuff. And he's really sensitive and fearful. And that dog might actually be a more dominant type of, you know, temperament, which is very rare. But But I just don't take people's face value because, and not saying this to be judgmental about dog owners, most dog owners don't have a great handle on what their dog actually is. So you can speak to that if you agree or disagree.
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I totally agree. But it's also, anthropomorphication, putting human characteristics on the animal is the biggest problem that we see. And I tell my clients, and I'm curious to see how you deal with clients that feel sorry for their dog or anthropomorphize their dog. I let them know, that this animal deserves, to live with integrity, and we don't feel sorry for that. We honor that, and
Right.
so we move on, and we don't live in the past. We live in the moment, and we honor the moment that we have with this animal. But I also help to educate the differences between the biological differences between the human and the dog that reinforces the fact that we are different species, and a different species that, yeah, we both have similarities, and we both have similarities with our body structures. We both have, digestive tract, circulatory, nervous systems, all this stuff that mammals have, a skeletal system, muscular system, things that we need to walk around on this plane of existence, Earth. And but we also have parts of our brain that are similar. We have the limbic system. We have the R complex, or the cerebellum, which is the bottom part of our brain. They call it the R complex because of the reptilian brain. And then we have the limbic, which is the mammalian brain. That's that buffer that goes on to the R complex. And then on the outer side, or the outer buffer of that, we have the prefrontal cortex as a human being. And that is a neocortex, often referred to as the new cortex, right? And this outer buffer allows us so many more capabilities with our thought process. We can time travel in our mind. We can really contemplate through situations. We can figure out programs and software that allow us to stream live, instantaneous, from Seattle and Nova Scotia, to whoever else around the world is watching this. And actually, just curious, where are you at in the world? Go ahead and comment down below. Let's see where we're reaching. But that, that dogs aren't capable of that, and to label that upon them is a disservice to that animal. And what I often encourage my clients to do is to, watch documentaries. I tell people, don't ever believe me. Go out, research this stuff, and the documentaries that I recommend are
Decoded.
Dogs Decoded, that's it. Yeah, Nova, Dogs Decoded, The Science of Dogs by National Geographic. And then We Made Dog is another one, I think, by National Geographic. And watch wolf documentaries as well. And just see how they interact and how they engage and move and live in the moment. We got Colorado, we got Boulder, Colorado, Salida, Colorado. So a book on canine neuroscience and brain anatomy, I can't, but I'm going to look for one, Jackie. I have behavior books, but as far as the anatomy book, I do not have, but I'll see what I can find. We have Justin representing Texas as well. So that's what I encourage my clients to do. I said, become the dog and honor that animal. And a lot of times when they watch this stuff, they see a different perspective of the animal. But even my conversations on these live streams have changed the way that I engage with my dogs, and because of how they see the world. And proximity is very close to dogs, or very important to dogs. And I took a challenge by Sherry Lucas to not give my dogs affection, the traditional type of affection where you're loving them up and petting them all the time, for 2 weeks. And it was pretty cool to see that. I don't know. I saw a behavior or a difference in their behavior. It was very cool.
I think I have a little bit of a different take on it, and obviously there's no right or wrong answer here, especially when it comes to clients. what I try to embody is I try not to make a separation between humans and dogs to a degree. I try to keep it as one and try to explain to my clients what the dogs are going through in a context that the human can understand and can process. And so, I'm not saying in any way that you do this, Bill, but I do know a lot of dog trainers that are just very like, listen, it's a dog. You just need to get over it. You have all these feelings that you're imparting up. And and again, I'm not saying that you do this, Bill, but I know some dog trainers that are so cutthroat about it's a dog, get over it. And I just don't feel like that's a good way to communicate with people, because you can't, because when you say that, especially in that manner, what you're doing is you're devaluing the life of the dog and the relationship that the dog has with the person, right? And so I have some unique views about dogs, but I don't communicate them necessarily with my clients because I know that they will detach from the training process and they will be less engaged. Like I feel like dogs are such amazing creatures. But why is it that if they wrap themselves around a tree on a leash, one they can't go backwards, right? But I don't use that in my training methodology to say, listen, your dog is a dummy. He can't even figure this out and you're overthinking it. I try to get people to understand, listen, your dog is going through something right now, and it's really important that he or she goes through it right now. Just like look at the areas in your life where you may have gone through something that actually led to a huge amount of growth. It probably coexisted with, a kind of a painful scenario for you to go through, right? Typically growth is something that follows, just a stretching of some degree, like a muscle. And so I just try to be really sensitive with my clients because we have these amazing bonds with our dogs. And I don't want to take anything away from that. I just want to emphasize the bond that they have. So just a little bit different perspective.
Yeah. And I agree fully. I take it to the point of, let's look at this dog's biology. Let's look at the amount of sense cells this animal has. And I talk about how human beings, that's the strongest sense tied to memory, is that olfactory scent. And so I smell roses and I think of my grandma who's in heaven right now, and I literally think of being with her. And I smell an old gasoline engine. It reminds me of riding as a kid on my dad's truck. And there's certain things that immediately transport me back. And I say and we only have 5 million scent cells, and some dogs have up to 220 million scent cells, but they at least have 100 million. And if we see the world like that, imagine how they see the world. And now you understand how they get lost so easily when they get on a scent or something like that, and celebrate what, we need to celebrate, our relationship, but we also need to celebrate our differences and utilize them too, with the training that we do, because this dog is built a certain way, and it speaks to that individual dog. And if we can find some things that this dog is doing that are going to help motivate and help build and strengthen and bond that relationship, I'm absolutely doing it that way. I'm never being like, get over it, it's just a dog. Well,
I know you wouldn't do that.
Yeah. It's not my, I love them. I watch them and I just think that they're so funny, man. I was getting my car checked out this morning, and I was at the mechanics store. And it was so cool. This little Pomeranian just come walking into this mechanics place and just lit up the whole room. And I'm just like, man, dogs are so cool.
Yeah.
So what is your number two, I guess? Have you, number two was your, what was number two?
So my number two is that you can't make people be what you want them to be. And so this kind of coincides with your point about picking the right types of clients. This is I categorize potential clients in 3 different categories. And so I do it, and this is just my own mental process. So obviously I don't give them a grade or anything, but I look at them in 3 different ways. So I look at them kind of in body shape, not what they actually look like, but what they would look like if fitness were something that were really important to them. So I'll give somebody who's who emails me, says, "Hey, what are your prices?" And like that type of a person, and they won't email you back for 14 days and whatever, you know, as a lot of dog trainers know, this is what we would refer to as a tire kicker. It's not top of mind. They're probably not going to change. It's not a big thing for them. I would classify them as the body type. It would be more so the obese body type. So I'll explain that in a minute. And then there's people in the middle that like want to make a change, that like are good people that actually like want to learn and want to be taught. And those people are kind of more like a regular body type. And then there's what I call the 6-pack people. And these are the people that like show up 5 minutes or 10 minutes early for their evaluation or their first lesson. You know, they email you the day before just to clarify, okay, I'm really excited about training. I just want to make sure that we're still on for tomorrow. Is there anything that I need to bring, etc.? And so I will categorize people and be completely honest in saying, I only want 6-pack clients. And the reason I want 6-pack clients is because if I don't have a 6-pack client, I can work with a 6-pack client. I can make regular weight clients work, but I cannot make that overweight client want it. And so the reason why this is important is because, and you talked about firing clients previously, I've only ever had to fire 1 client. And the reason I've only ever had to fire 1 client, there's a bunch of different reasons, but the major reason is that I pick them and I groom them. So I'll pick the regular or the 6-pack clients, which we can go into at length if anybody's interested. But what I'll do with it is I'll pick them and then I'll groom them in a specific way to get the best client who's engaged, who knows what the expectations are, etc. And the reason why that's important is because then I don't have to get angry with people. I don't have to get stern and make sure that they're doing it. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I don't have to oversee anybody or, you know, be poking and prodding at people to do stuff because they want it. They want it just as bad as I want something, you know, and so that's basically my number 2 is that you can't make people want it. And I just saw a really interesting interview last night or the night before. I can't remember the fellow's name, but he was a coach. He's like a success coach or something like that for some of the most impressive CEOs in the world. And there was this interview with him and he was talking about how they were talking about like how do you choose your clients and whatever. And he just said flat out, he's like, I don't choose like people that aren't going to be exactly what, like, if they're not going to do what I'm going to ask them to do, like, I'm not spending time with them because I am one of the most productive, probably the best kind of life coaches or whatever he is in the world. But I can't convince that person to do the work or to change if they don't want to. And so, you know, it just gives me even more insight into, you know, it makes sense to say, okay, you can shape a regular client and with the proper tutelage, you can make them into a 6-pack client. You can make a 6-pack client into, I don't know, a bodybuilder client if there's another category. But you can't take that obese or that overweight client and make them into anything else because they don't want to be anything else.
Yeah, you could take that 6-pack client and turn their dog into a champion.
Exactly.
And that's what they want. You know, they want that. That's what they strive for. James Matriana is from all the way from down under, says, boys. And then we have Long Island, New York in the house. Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. I mean, and I think it's very important for you know, people to understand this. And I think that because this is such a passion for people and we belong to an emotional industry, an emotionally fueled industry. And it's very simple. Sometimes, I mean, these problems, we can walk up and be like, hey, look, if you did this with your dog instead of this, you would see, you know, a much better walk or something like that. But you know, unsought diagnostics or, you know, unsought advice is usually met with animosity, because they have a totally different idea of this relationship and the perspective of it. And I think that it's frustrating as dog trainers, because we can see a different form of what's possible with that relationship, and show these people, hey, look, you could take your relationship with your dog to another level here, by understanding what motivates and yeah, and so we're fueled by that as well. But yeah, you can't be everything to everybody, and that was my number 4. So we're hitting pretty similar in that you need to qualify your clients. I learned that from the very beginning when I was trying to spin my tires, trying to help friends with their dogs, you know, and then trying to get them to do actually what I said, and then trying to spin my tires again, collecting payment.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite verses from the Bible, Jesus is being ridiculed by those around him, and he says, you know what? A prophet is never welcome in his hometown. Yeah,
I mean, that's it. I mean, and he wouldn't be able to do, you know, what he did because of, you know, that a lot of times it will be, I don't know, you grew up, they kind of see you as a child, you know, and sometimes they can't see you as anything else.
Oh, on a side, I want to mention Raquel has posted about changing as a choice. So that brought something to thought.
That is so true. Changing is a choice the client has to want to execute. Absolutely.
If anybody's interested, just type into Google the cycle of change. So it's this concept from human psychology that talks about the cycle of when people are willing to change. And so something that one of my clients taught me about actually not too long ago, about 3-4 months ago, that I've really been utilizing. It talks about pre-contemplation, contemplation, you know, taking first steps, different things like that. And it talks about the whole cycle. And so when you understand this cycle of change, you can start to look at somebody that's asking for help, and you can actually diagnose where they are on that chart. How bad does this person want it, right? And you know, you don't really want to be taking a client that's pretty, you know, pretty underdeveloped on that chart. You want them pretty much all the way around that chart, right? Where they're coming in saying, I need to change, I need to do something here. So if anybody's interested, just type in a Google, the cycle of change. It could help you a lot in your businesses.
Well, hold on. I can share it really quick. I have it up here. The stages of change. Prokashka and Deklimpmenta. Menta. Looks like those are the authors here. So let me show you. Let me see if I can share this. What Ted is talking about, and here I'll make this the whole thing here. So and let me drop down Raquel's comment here. So if you see the stages of change, we have pre-contemplation, no intention on changing behavior. And then that goes to contemplation, aware of a problem, and that's where the tire kickers are. Because they're like, hey, man, you know, my friend got bit when he was walking out of my house, or, you know, something that happened. They're aware of a problem exists, but no commitment to action. And then that comes to preparation. That's the next step. Intent on taking action to address the problem. So they're starting to prepare. They're actually putting out the feelers, and they're going to take action. They're going to actively modify the behavior. And then we have the maintenance, or the management of that. And we talk to people when their dogs go home a lot of times, especially after behavior rehabilitation, that the maintenance, especially at the beginning, is like taking somebody like they're coming out of a rehab, like a drug rehab place. We're not going to put them back to the same lifestyle that they were at before. we need to maintain this in a new sustained change. A new behavior needs to replace the old behavior. Otherwise, we're going to fall back, and then we see relapse is fall back into old patterns of behavior. Wild, man. And this is intervention, so social work. And I work, you know what's wild, dude, is that I've been watching, let me pull this back up here. So I've been watching these movies on TLC, I think, just get them on Amazon, but the 600-Pound Life, Addiction, and Hoarders. And all three of these, the commonality is some type of trauma has happened in these people's lives that has made them act in a way that wants to push the rest of the world away, so to speak. And it's just so crazy that this is the stages of change is exactly what they talk about in that show. So it's wild, and that's behavior too. When we work with behavior, we find behavior fascinating. I do, at least, even people, animals. Chickens. I love watch my chickens, and my cats, all that stuff, and just the dramatic differences between them.
Yeah, and I think you could take that cycle of change and you could implement it into the dog that you're working with, right?
Yeah, especially that maintenance, especially that
pre-contemplation stage, right? When the dog.
Yeah. You're like, dude, don't do it. Come on, buddy. Well, they're like, man, should I stay with this dude or am I going to go after that? You know, or whatever their behavior. And, you know, with the maintenance is huge. I like that. I want to, I'll definitely be revisiting this and checking into that. By Prokashka. And yep. So Marilyn is familiar with this. Kenneth says hello, and we have Brittany from Spokane, Washington. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for watching us. We are talking right now about the 5 most important things that we have learned as dog trainers. And we were talking earlier about Ted's new book. So it's Thriving Dog Trainers. That one's more towards the business professional, and he's going to be releasing his other new book that's geared more towards members of the general public here in, well, he's going to be finishing it in July. And then how long does the process take for it to?
Yeah, it'll be out in July. So
it'll be out. It'll be published and ready to rock. And
yeah, so I've got to finish it next month, and then get everything. The publishing process doesn't take a whole lot of time on Amazon, which is nice. So it'll be out in July, and I think a lot of trainers will like it as well too. It's a training book, so they might pick up a thing or two. Yeah, I want to do something more to help dog owners too. You know, hopefully at a larger scale.
I think that's what my book is going to be geared towards. Is my observations selecting a dog. I want it to be geared towards dog owners. Primarily. And if you folks, I'm going to put up a comment, or I'm going to put up a link right now in the comment section to Amazon. And you know, some of the folks that I know, they're better at the audiobooks, and you also have a copy of this available on Audible as well. So check that out, and give our man some support. Share this and purchase the book today. It's valuable insight, especially if you are in the industry. You cannot afford not to see what's in the information that is in this book, and apply it to your business, or even, you know, look at some mistakes or some things that you might learn not to do.
Exactly. So what's your next point there, Bill?
So that last one was, you know, you can't be everything to everybody, and qualify your clients, you know, qualify them psychographically as well as demographically. Look at what you said. I like what you were saying about the body shape. I totally get it, you know, and that's a good way to, you know, kind of put them into categories that might incentivize you to work with somebody. If I had a 6-pack client on a shoestring budget versus an obese client that was wealthy, guess who I'm taking, dude?
Yeah, all day long.
All day long, dude. And we can figure stuff out. as far as the money is concerned. Like, we can do payments, we can, but if I see somebody that has that, because overall it's going to benefit this dog. So I get that, man. My fifth thing, and as I've done this for a while, I am starting to transition my business where I want to spend a good quality chunk of time in different parts of the country. We want to become little like snowbirds. And so my fifth thing is to work on your business. Remember to work on your business, not just in your business, and to get an idea and a way that kind of keeps that same authenticity. But how can this be either cloned, or how can this change to accommodate a different lifestyle? That kind of thing. So work on your business, not just in your business, and know that you might not know some things that really could benefit you. So look at mentors and people that have achieved what you're looking for, people that have been successful in business, and reach out to them. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that like to help, and they're looking for people that are hungry, and they're looking for six-pack clients as well, just like Teddy was talking about, the gentleman that advises Fortune 500 companies. Cool. The trainer I work with now is like that. What do you mean, Gene? It was like what? I don't know what she's talking about. I think I'm not sure. Hi, Bill. Hi, Ted. Hi, Ted and Bill. This is from Tosh from New Zealand. We have a couple people from down under there. What about you, dude? What's the number 5 for you?
So, and I know that this is just overplayed and everybody's heard this a million times before, but if you don't desire to work with people, you are constantly going to struggle as a dog trainer.
That's huge. That I should have put that.
In this book, I talk about the fact that is honestly a little unnerving for me. The wealthiest dog trainers that I know are hands down not the best dog trainers that I know, right? And Bill, you can speak to this as well too. There are some trainers that are doing well financially, and they're also great trainers. For example, Tyler Muto, very successful business owner and a phenomenal dog trainer.
And handsome.
What's that?
And handsome, super handsome, but he doesn't have the beard.
Yeah.
He needs it.
But for the most part, a lot of the people who really focus on their business, focus on marketing, understanding the business side, those are the people that end up winning financially. Now, this is in no way me saying, listen, don't care about dogs, don't care about your techniques, stop growing as a dog trainer and just focus on business. There needs to be that, that healthy medium for sure. But if you can't work with people, if you don't like working with people, there are very few options for you as a dog trainer, because you're going to continue to struggle. Your clients won't refer you to their friends and family members. And a lot of people get into it because, I want to work with dogs, but they don't realize that it's the people that have the Visa and MasterCards. So they struggle, and then oftentimes they start to kind of, drive themselves into the background by starting these board and train companies. And that's not a solve either, because you still have to train not only the dog, but you have to train the person. And board and trains require just as much time with the people as a regular training program do for the most part. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those things where I really want people to read this. A lot of you guys are already trainers, but I want people to pick this up before they become trainers, and potentially even get them to say, just be honest with themselves and say, this is not I want to work with dogs, but the only way that I can realistically do that if I don't like people is to work for a company where I don't have to engage with people at all. I can't be a business owner. Somebody's going to give me a job. I train a board and train. I never have any contact with anybody. That's the only way it's really going to work. And so if you're in that limbo period where you don't really like people that much, I typically suggest, and this is a really common thing amongst dog trainers, you need to figure out what is going on up here. Because if you are seeing something in dogs that this is a species that is far superior to human beings, there's some sort of trauma, there is something that has happened in your past that you have not been able to get past. And you are able to, if you actually start to look down deep and realize, okay, maybe it's not that you don't like people, maybe it's that you've been screwed over by your ex-husband. Maybe it's the fact that your parents mistreated you when you were young. Maybe it's the fact that you've chosen terrible friends, they've mistreated you, and now you are convinced that people are all bad. But in reality, for the most part, people are awesome.
Yeah,
and when you go in with that intention that people are awesome and you choose systematically, things are, great. And one of the things I'm very outspoken about is I personally believe that dog trainers need to get out there and need to have friends. I've been talking about this for a while now, get out there, be in the real world, develop friendships, be a human being. And I constantly hear from trainers that say I don't really like people, I just like being with the dogs. That's a cop-out. That's a safety mechanism because you have not been able to deal with the people in the real world. And oftentimes what it comes down to is that a lot of times people are afraid to be around other people because they've met people in bad situations and given them huge agency in their life. What that means is if you continue to have friends and people around you that are screwing you over, where are you meeting these people? If you're meeting in bars at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to meet potentially not the greatest people, and then they're going to hurt you, and then you're not going to want to be around people anymore, right? You need to get out there in the real world, meet nice people that are respectable, joining clubs, joining Toastmasters where you can learn to public speak, going to a church group, doing something like playing poker with some doctor that lives down the street, doing something social, because at the end of the day, if you want to be around dogs more than you want to be around people, I get that, but that's a human flaw. It's not just who you are. You weren't that way when you grew up. You weren't that way when you were young. That's something that's developed over time, and you will constantly struggle in your business. And I know that because I mentor so many trainers that say, I don't like being around people. When you start to dive into it, there's reasons why. And when they get past it, they can start to enjoy being around these people and actually want to start helping people. And then their business will flourish because of that.
Absolutely. Well, Brad Strickland and I speak about how a lot of times the actual dog is an underlying symptom of a disordered family unit. And sometimes we gotta kind of thin slice through this to see whether it's a recent divorce or the family just moved or whatever's going on there, man. And if you don't like people, and we've heard this, listen to Brad Strickland's live stream that I did, and listen to Sherry Lucas, and listen to various other people that have said the same exact thing, that if you are getting in the dog industry because you are not a fan of people, you are in for a rude awakening. And because most of the time, you're going to be working with those people, even with that board and train, because now they have invested time, effort, and put the care into your hands. And so now you need to get that, make sure that translates and to those people. And then we also have a comment here that I have. So we have a couple. So Jean was talking about when she said, the trainer I work with is like that. She meant that it is willing to work with a person that does not have a lot of money, but more than willing to put in the work. Yes. And Tosh says, I've struggled with people because of my own anxiety and was recommended these 2 books that I found helpful in understanding human behavior. Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, and Homo Deus, A Brief History of Tomorrow. And I have put links up to both of those books in the comments here before. Rebecca says, I had a trainer who didn't like people. It showed, and we did not go back. And that's absolutely, it's easy to see when somebody doesn't like people. And just like what Ted says, that needs to be explored, um, because I don't know. I mean, I see that this dog training industry is filled with a lot of egos too, and I think that I've experienced individuals that literally think that they can control animals, and so therefore they can control other human beings as well, and it's an ugly thing. It's very gross, and a lot of times I see it in the working dog field more, so to speak. But that's just my observations there, and it's not typically what I like to do. And I agree fully with you, man. Is, you know, the people are what make up this business. Even though we are dog trainers, we are still a liaison between that dog and that person that is hiring us and paying good money and expecting results. And a lot of times they've been disappointed over and over again. And so I take issue with that as well, dude, when I hear people saying that. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I mean, especially that aspect of it, when people put their money on the line, their hard-earned money, and say, hey, look, I need help, and they expect that from you. I want to give them what they deserve, and that is results.
Yeah, I think that people need to be realistic with themselves and understanding it's a character flaw, just like anything else. Like, I have character flaws in my life that, you know, I'm definitely, there's ones that I'm working on. There's ones that I will have to work on at some point in my life that I just haven't gotten to. But I see so many trainers that just have convinced themselves that that's who they are. And it's not who they are. It's something that they've convinced themselves of, oftentimes because they've been hurt. And when you convince yourself that that's who you are, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that you hate people, which is literally the terminology that some of them will use. The thing is that you can't get
I hate people.
That if you believe that you hate people, you can't get over that if you don't believe that it's actually a problem. Like, if you think it's just okay, you're never going to take steps to actually get over that, and then your business is never going to get any better either. So I don't know. Another thing I often think about too is if I'm working with a client and I'm struggling. Now, this doesn't happen very often because most of my clients, you know, I pick really well. But if I'm struggling with a client, oftentimes I see so many trainers that just start blaming the client, and it's just like, oh, I got to fire him because of this. And when I'm struggling with a client, I sit down after the client leaves and I ask myself, what am I doing wrong here? Why aren't they fully committed? Like, what happened? Like, I chose well. Like, they passed my, you know, my entry to get in the door. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, how am I not properly educating these people? You know, like, do I need to look at how these people, you know? And sometimes I'll just sit them down in the next lesson, and I might even ask them, like, are you guys visual learners? Like, do you guys need more, you know, visual things? Do you want to, like, videotape parts of the lesson so you guys can go home and watch this later on? You know, I noticed that you've been 5 minutes late for your first 3 lessons. Is there a better time that we can meet at? Like, but these are questions that oftentimes as dog trainers, we just go, they're late, they're not committed, they don't care. But we oftentimes, it's just safer for us to blame it on other people, because then we don't have to take any actual, I don't know, we don't, like, it's not us, it's them. And as educators, if people are not learning the way that they should be, as the educator, I need to take the initiative to say, well, I'm not doing something here that I could be doing.
Yeah. Well, people don't know that you know, when you're, just like we can fire clients, well, the client can fire you too. And that is a golden opportunity to ask why. And I mean, if you can, in a way that is like, look, I know, and I appreciate, you know, the time, but can I ask why? You know, and that is a pearl. I mean, there's a pearl in there, especially if it is a qualified client that has met your criteria and gone through all the hoops and everything that you have done. Take note on why they are stopping utilizing your service. It's a very valuable learning opportunity. A lot of people, like you said, just kind of look past that and shrug it off. And sometimes it can be, just a difference of opinion or whatever it is. But you can learn that how to better serve people that way.
Yeah.
Even though it's uncomfortable, man.
Nobody's perfect. We're all figuring this out. I'm not perfect with my clients. It's, it's an ongoing process. And so, nobody has it figured out. I like to think that I'm getting better with every year that goes by, but it's an ongoing process, and learning how to live with people, learning how to work with people, and learning how to work with their dogs, which, as you mentioned, is super emotional. It's something we're never going to be perfect at, even if we do this for 40 or 50 years. And so, it's an ongoing process. We just need to be committed to being vulnerable enough to be able to change and take criticism and move along the way and look inside and say, like, hey, maybe I messed up here. What could I do better next time?
Jeff Gelman recommended The Power of Vulnerability to me by Brene Brown. And let me put up a link here. Power of Vulnerability, teaching of authenticity, which we just spoke about earlier, connection, and courage. And this one is one of my favorites. Brene Brown is quite the good speaker. She also has some TED Talks about this, and just like what Ted was saying about being vulnerable. Yeah, I mean, we're in the emotional arena, folks, and in the dog training industry, there's big money being spent by corporations just to get their product to be viewed in an emotional light. I mean, billions and billions and billions of dollars to get people to fall in love with their products. Well, we have the advantage that we belong in an industry that the product is that dog, and then the people are already in love with it, sometimes too much in love with it, to the point of infatuation that it becomes unhealthy in the relationship, and that's why we have a job a lot of times. And so, look at that as, a benefit, but it's also can be a double-edged sword because they hire a lot of times you to introduce logic into this emotional relationship, and sometimes they don't want to do what you've suggested, or that goes back to that stages of change as well that Ted was talking about, if they're ready. And so it's not just about qualifying that client, but qualifying that stage that they're at. Anybody else have any questions here? I think that's it, man. I mean, five.
We don't have any questions. We had some comments there, which is great. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot. Love to answer any questions, and I'm sure Bill is on board to do that as well. And super grateful for being on here with you. And not only that, grateful that you guys would tune on and listen to us chat for the last hour and 49 minutes, or hour and 15 minutes, or whatever it's been, which is sometimes I feel like I don't know why somebody would listen to me talk for more than 3 minutes. So kudos.
I think you got a lot of insightful things to say, and it's been an honor having you. I am honored to call you friend, and I can't wait to just meet you in person and shake your hand, dude, look at you in the eyes, and it's crazy how these relationships have formed with people that we never have met in person. And speaking of relationships, one cannot control another human in any way, shape, or form. I agree 100%. To you, I'm so happy to be introduced to you, to Bill. You're an awesome guy. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you. I'm an awesome guy. Cool. I love it. I love what I do. And these
on that topic, Mr. Awesome Guy Bill, I'm going to hold you accountable as your accountability partner. As you mentioned, you're writing
my
a book.
Yeah, where's my outlet?
I want to get a date from you.
So what is? I don't have anything, dude. I don't really, and I want it to be a good book. I mean, here we go. This is how it starts, folks. So I mean, I think, how long do you think I need?
Have you started it?
No. I started an outline, kind of. I need to go revisit it. And then but I really want it to be concise. I want to talk about a lot of stuff too, and I don't want it to be too much. So much, I don't know, man. We'll talk about it.
Rather than putting you on the spot, here's what I'm going to say. After the call, when we end our live, you and I will hop onto a Facebook chat together, and I'll tell you some things that I learned in processing through, and we can figure out a realistic timeline for you. But more than 2 to 3 months is just excessive. If you put your mind to it and you really.
I'm thinking like next year. I'm like, yeah, next May. But see, there we go.
Okay, so it'll be done in 2 weeks. Cool, got it.
2 weeks. I'll have everybody look for my book, my new release book, coming out in 2 weeks.
Actually, we should write one together, and we'll call it Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures.
Yeah. And now that the new movie's coming out, they're making the new one, the Bill and Ted. So we can hop on the coattails of that. Michelle says, "Thank you both, Ted. I just ordered your book. Bill cannot wait for yours to come out." There you go. There you go. See, Bill, are you carrying a pocket knife? I'm not carrying a pocket knife. I don't think I am. I have my wallet and I have a pen. Does that count? Pen is mightier than the pocket knife, don't they say?
Ryan says, Ted just wrote a book in a day.
In a day. Ted just wrote a book while we were talking here on this hour conversation here. So just so you know.
No, but it was about a month, so it can be done pretty quickly. And I'm still working full time and living my life. So you can, if you put the hours in, it's like Gary Vaynerchuk always says, businesses are built between 7 p.m. and 2 a.m. So that's just the way that I.
That's my torch time, dude. That's where I get out there and I work on that torch. And I think I need to carve out a little time, an hour at least, to do this book. I feel like I'm ready and yeah. So
I can also suggest some books for you as well too that'll help to kind of streamline the process a little bit for you as well. I read in the process of writing the book, I read a bunch of books, or I listened to them because I listen to books on Audible, and so I actually consumed a ton of content about self-publishing and writing and stuff. So I can suggest some of those to you as well. And if anybody has any interest in that, if anybody's thinking about writing a book, feel free to send me a private message or shoot me an email at ted@mangodogs.com, and I'd be more than willing to share my info with you.
Cool. So ted@mangodogs.com. I'm going to put that up here. And then that's how the people's best way to get a hold of you. ted@mangodogs.com. There you go. Spelled correctly there?
Let me see.
Mango Dogs. Yeah, or if anybody's listening or viewing this that is a ghostwriter or a voiceover professional, I don't think I'm going to be doing that, dude. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. After Ted scared me. So I think that's it, you guys. Stephen King's on writing is kind of really kind of beautiful. So I'll write Stephen King on writing. Is that a book? Stephen King on writing.
Rebecca, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm sure it'd be a good book.
Oh, On Writing, a memoir of the craft by Stephen King and Simon & Schuster Audio. So.
Oh, beautiful.
I'll put a link to that, man. I've got it right here, so might as well just put a link. We're talking about it here while we're live. So, alrighty, guys. I think we're going to be calling it. Anything else you wanted to touch on there, Ted?
No. Again, just thank you so much. If anybody's interested in following my the books that I'm going to be writing, I'm hoping to write about 4 in the next year. So, you can check out my website, tedsbooks.com, and yeah, you can follow all that. Plus, there's also like even if you don't buy the book, you can still go on, join my newsletter, and you can get access to having a free contract to use with your client, an evaluation form, a bunch of different documents. There's a small audiobook, 45-minute audiobook, and kind of a step-by-step game plan on how to build a veterinarian referral system. So you can get all that stuff for free. Just go to tedsbooks.com, sign up for my newsletter, and it's all yours.
Excellent. Awesome, folks. I got the Ted's books up on the screen there. It's been another great conversation on the Bow Wow Bill live stream. We have Gary Casera joining us on Monday, and then we also have a few other guests that are coming on. So stay tuned in the coming weeks. And thank you very much, Ted. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, brother.
You too, my friend. Thank you.
All right, everybody. It was fun. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.